In your opinion, does this franchise have a vision? What does that mean? Like when they hire and fire people, are they sticking to a core central philosophy, or are they oscillating back and forth to see what's working?
I don't think they have a vision actually, and I don't think this question actually applies even to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. I think it goes beyond that. If you look at a lot of the direct decisions that the Niners make, as and I talked about this on the Spaces actually, and I think it stems from Jed York. To me, they make reactive decisions rather than proactive decisions. I mean, you look at the last two regimes that Jed York has had, and there's mistakes in terms of how power has been allocated and divided amongst people. To his credit, Jed York is definitely understanding that he's making mistakes and he's attempting to learn from them. And he definitely, is trying to do less of what didn't work last time. I think the issue is that he doesn't seem to have a clue of how to build an organization that can have sustained success. And to me, the biggest way to look at it, right? I went back to the reactive proactive. He had in 2010, he did the thing of hiring Singletary on the spot, all of that. Then, or not in 2010, excuse me, 2008, he went through that. That was obviously a catastrophe. So then they went through the process and, they had McClugan and he had his drinking problem. They finally hired Trent Baalke. They hired a strong GM. They went through the hiring process and they interviewed everybody. They landed Harbaugh. And then what he found is having a strong GM and having the coach clash with the strong GM, it's not in the best interest of the franchise having success long term, even though Harbaugh and Baalke really had a lot of success very early. They had 4 straight years, especially the first 3. That was just unprecedented success for a team who just didn't happen to win the Super Bowl. It was a little bit like the Saints the last few years, where they had the best team in football every year and they just couldn't win it. And then, he let Baalke hire his own coach. And, having the strong GM, he found his big lesson, and he talked about it a lot, was that the coach and GM have to work in concert. That was his big takeaway. Well, now here we are in a situation where the coach and GM are working in concert, and he's done the exact opposite. Instead of having a strong GM have full control of the franchise, he's now given a strong coach full control of the franchise. And the big issue with this team is that it feels like there's nobody to check Kyle Shanahan with his decision making. I mean, John Lynch was basically a Kyle Shanahan hire. He has zero resume for the job other than the fact that he interned in Denver with his buddy John Elway for a little bit. And he basically does a great job of maintaining media relations, though I don't think he does a very good job of talking to the media. I think that a lot of the things he says could be interpreted as unprofessional if somebody else said it. But because he's John Lynch, the ultimate guy, they call him Captain America, he gets away with saying some of the things he says. I think more or less that's their big issue, right? Jed York doesn't seem to have a clear vision of this is how I can build a sustained franchise. He's just trying to not do what didn't work last time. And that's what's
Right.
leading to, individual seasons of success, but not a sustained vision of how this team can be excellent for 4 years, 5 years,
Yeah.
6 years.
Real quick, I've been going back and doing my history because I've been covering this team since 2011. And a lot of ways, like we kind of think of 49ers history starting in 2011 because that's when they started winning for the first time in a long time. But I was going back to like the end of the Walsh era. Like Walsh was the GM in 99. So was John McVay, who was the GM for 2 decades, for all the good times. Then before they brought in Jed was 23. The parents brought in Parag. And I don't think Parag even knew Jed at this point. But Parag became very powerful early on, and he impressed the Yorks, who I don't think were very impressed with Walsh. I think they felt that Walsh, at the time, had kind of passed him by, and that Parag was the future. And I found a blurb from an article from 2008 saying that Jed York and Parag led the coaching search in 2004. And they had like some spreadsheet statistical model that said that Mike Holmgren wasn't going to be good. Now, maybe he wasn't going to be good, but they ended up hiring Mike Nolan. So I think it's fair to point out that like they've had a very strong man in the front office that doesn't get. I mean, we talk about him, but Parag is basically. I mean, that's the one guy that Kyle really has to that pushes back against Kyle, and I think Kyle wins those disputes. But still, he's very, very important. He's been there for 21 years.
Yeah, no, and I think
Yeah.
that's fair. I think his role in all of this has never been kind of clear to us. but he's been the one consistent. And I think it's fair to point to him and ask him what exactly does he do and
And what results
how
have you
has
gotten in
he
21 years?
how has
Yeah,
he contributed or,
right.
detracted from the 49ers not doing that well? The one thing I will say, and I know this is sacrilegious, but luckily I was born after this time. So when I go back and look at history, I don't have any bias. I do think getting rid of Bill Walsh at that time was the right decision. You go look at a lot of like the reason the Niners fell apart really, if you look at it, is after 96, 97, they drafted horribly. He wanted Terry Donahue and he wanted to hire him as the GM. And Terry Donahue, in my opinion, was a terrible general manager. Just if I mean, I wasn't alive at that time, but if I just go back and look at his results, to me, he didn't look like he did a very good job. It looked like the team stayed afloat because they had Steve Young and Jerry Rice. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I know it's very sacrilegious to criticize
Well, I
those
think it's
people,
also
but
fair to point out that Bill Walsh is the last person who found a Pro Bowl quarterback for the 49ers. That was
that's
20
fair.
years ago.
That's fair. That's
Yep.
absolutely fair. There's no doubt about that. And I was more pointing to the fact that he hired Terry Donahue, who to me, his real only contribution, I guess, was Terrell Owens, but he didn't.
Yeah, I think that's going back pretty far. Anyway, does the franchise have a vision? Currently, no. Let's bring it back to the present. The answer is no. And they went from, again, not extending Jim Harbaugh after losing the Super Bowl and trying to say we have higher standards than that, to extending Kyle Shanahan after the same circumstances. They really seem like they just kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks, or they do what the fans want them to do. They're sort of reacting to public pressure.
I do think there is a little bit of that. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a business and you are looking to sell a product, and the product you're selling is a football team. So I totally understand why it is that way. But I do think it exists for sure. I mean, Chip Kelly was not hired to be fired in 2017. He was fired in 2017 because nobody really embraced Chip Kelly as the head coach.
I want to point something out before we move on. The Niners have had 4 winning seasons since 2003. We all know this. Niner fans know this, but I don't think Niner fans really know where that is in context of other bad franchises. Like the other 2 teams that have had 4 winning seasons since 2003 are Jacksonville and Detroit. So the Niners
Ouch.
are Detroit with better marketing or more faithful fans. I don't know what you want to say, but that's where they're at. I mean, Miami, the Jets, Washington has had more winning seasons in that time frame than the Niners. So if they have a vision, it's not working.
And I agree with that. And then just one thing, I misspoke, just misremembered my 49ers history a little bit. I don't think Terry Donahue drafted
No,
Terrell Owens.
yeah.
I think the reason just combined those two names is because he's the one who was basically pretty vocal about
The
Terrell
way I
Owens'
remember
locker room
is that
issues, right?
Yorks brought in Donahue to pretty much push out the old guard. I could be
Okay, I
Donahue
don't
brought
know.
in
I mean, I
yeah.
just go off what's available on the internet. I
Yeah.
wasn't there at that time.
I
So
don't know. We're both going back pretty far.